Welcome back to our coverage of the Econo Lichtenburg 200, the second round of the Africa Off-Road Championship Racing Series for 2019. Kids, bikes, quads, all done. Now time to go out and get wild with the cars and the buggies.
I'm Elise Roberts. This is our second warms-up race. We're at Lichtenburg. This is my navvy, James Trollop. We are very excited about today. Yes, and I just wanted to say thank you to all the sponsors. And we're riding with Flip and the team. And yeah, we're very excited. Thank you.
While the nerves were still bubbling, everyone getting ready for the Lichtenburg 200, brought to you by Econo Petroleum, it was time for a quick prize giving while everyone had their race suits on or was about to go get into their race suits for the queue. Round one, Corlini giving us some great racing and some new champions and faces to watch out for. These were now marked men and women going forward into the rest of the racing tour. On the queue then, it would be Ernst Roberts who would open up the track for us as the fastest ranked driver coming out of round number one. There'd be some old favourites and new faces coming into the queue this time around as well, as once again we went through the start line scenario to see who would be the best in category and overall. Ernst Roberts and Henry Kerner, first time in the Navy seat, first time in a Nissan for Henry. They would go out on full attack in the T333. Odds on, he was going to be a strong bet to win out this event, all being even. Freddie O'Brien and Johan Retief in the B category would go out and be the best of the Bs. 8 of the B categories going out there to try and see what they could do. Gil Nel and Ben Jansen in the P47. There would be a strong bet in the P category, with just Hein Engelbrecht and Rhino de Villiers to go up against. 3 entries coming out of that category. Jason Mitchell and Monet Conradi in the B27. A team on the up at the moment, trying to still taste that podium victory. Rhino de Villiers and Andre Dupria, the P37, taking some big hits early on, casing out, and they'd be feeling that one for the next couple of hours at least. Dilvan van Breda and James Ware in the G10. The G category, always so exciting for all of us, giving us, I think it was 5 entries on the day. The Familians, Junior and Cena, looking for a win in the F category with Clarence and Annalise Veskerka, the G11. They've been getting real good and consistent finishes in their G category. They would once again try and chase down a top 3 to get on the podium. Johan Besson and Jaco Estes in the B11. One of the teams predicted to deliver a top 5 finish come the end of play. Johan Lloyd and Arnold Tarrant, they know how to win these kind of events. They'd have to just figure out if this track was going to be one of theirs or one of their competitions. The B100, the bug of Steve van Schalkwyk and Arthur Croshaw. A ton of podiums over the last couple of seasons. They would once again be a big threat. Marlene Croshaw and Marina van Schalkwyk, the C100. They were the only entry at the opening round. 3 entries this time around, they would have their work cut out. Nish Albana in the B20. Single-seater, but still going to be a big threat. Just has to be the perfect day, and he can get the job done. For the D category, some of the older buckies, Barry Kotze and Given and Ngubeni, bouncing and bucking their way out the gate. 2 quad racers joining up, going arm in arm, side by side. Gideon Jacobs on the wheel. Gideon Reinecke on the notes. Johan Strauss and Alzon Fenter. The T category becoming a big thing nowadays. The T29 trying to get the job done and climb the ladder, but they'd be up against some real key players. Hein and Reinhard Engelbrecht in the P58, normally running ADA, teaching people how to not fall over on off-road bikes. They've spent the last couple of months prepping that car to perfection. Elise Roberts and James Trollop, watch out, because they've started to get much faster in their G7. The first time out was at round number 1. Now they should be able to go after it. The G1 of Marcus Labuskakny and Jirio Niemand absolutely hooking it down the start chute, not even flinching for those little kickers. Willy Fellman and Cornelius Niemann, this would be the only chance we saw of the F1. 10Ks into lap 1, the terminal failure forcing them out of the event. For Rudy Miller and Gerrit Steyn in the B40, the day wouldn't be much better. 1 lap counted, the rest on the sideline. Herzog and Nicole Prinsloo in the T16. This was going to be a strong bet. with 3 very strong teams coming out of the Class T challenge this time. The D40 of Tinus Jacobs and Valdi Prince, they would know they were going to be in a battle, but with just 2 Class Ds, it was all or nothing. Barry Kotzer and Given Ngabeni, or Tinus Jacobs and Valdi Prince. Peter and Natasha Reinicke, the G270. A nice mix of some of the newer and old shape Can-Ams this time around. For Johan and Sean van Staden, just some extra training this time out. And what better training and prep is there than racing? The Alfa and Adusta of Johan and Sean getting the mileage in. Veneri and Prius Botma, the B12, they'd be looking to bring home a nice solid finish. Their pace in the past has showed that they are good enough to bring home top 6s every day. The C7, we saw it get dusted off at the opening round. Johnny Walker, it was Ethan John Walker in the seat. This time around, it's Dwayne McGregor calling the notes. 3 entries from the C-Class, giving us a definitely good mix. And no one knew who was going to walk away with that class win. The 7th entry in from the G category, Muhammad and Ridwan Dada. They would be chased down by the 3rd entry for the Class Cs. This was the unknown factor, Tom and Krasil van Tonda. Out there on the route, and some great shots coming in from the drone at the first of the spectator points. Under and out they go. Ernst Roberts and Henry Kerner having the unenviable task of having to open up the road. But Henry, one of the best navigators in the country, and certainly we're starting to see some incredible driving coming in from Ernest Roberts. A couple of seasons in side-by-sides. End of last year onto full production, and this year committing to a full Class FIA spec season. They would do the open road story, and I think on this terrain with the very high bush as well, it was going to be a great place to be. Hard passes to make out in the terrain around Lichtenburg for the 200 kilometers of racing. For the F category, it was all fun and games as always for the Formulans as they ploughed the field and tried desperately to make some early lap racing passes. The Donga on the outside of the turn just after the bridge, catching a lot of guys out. Johan Lloyd and Arnold Theron losing a little bit of time, a little bit of metal from underneath their car as well as they bellied out, but thankfully didn't go all the way up and over. Colleen Croshaw knew she was going to be in a race this time around as she had Barner and Jacobs along with Reinicke in the queue pushing on. The quad guys were always going to be super aggressive off the gate. The T29 of Johan Strauss and Alzon Fenter, they'd be in a war for the 2nd place dice for the Class Ts between themselves and the Prinslus. Kutsia and Ngabeni were about to get closed down by a charging Labuskakni and Niemand. The G1 setting the pace early on lap 1 for the G category. Join us after the break and see how it all unfolds in the remaining 200 kilometers of racing for the Econo Lichtenburg 200.
This week, the all-electric Formula E Racing Series. The Motorsport Connection with watchmaker Tag Heuer. Nissan's Radical GTR sports car. And through the French countryside with the Tour Auto.
Have you ever wondered what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur? Catch Blueprint with Colette Prince as she profiles some of SA's foremost entrepreneurs and top business minds, bringing you the story less spoken and how these individuals rewrote the rules of business and became the captains of their destinies.
BBTY, be better than yesterday. It's this constant drive to be better than I was yesterday.
We couldn't give up. There was nowhere backwards. We had to just keep going forward.
That's Blueprint, only on Business Day TV.
Welcome back as we continue our coverage of the closing kilometers for the Lichtenburg 200, the 2nd round of the Africa Off-Road Championship Racing Series. This round brought to you by Econo Petroleum. It's been all smooth sailing for the JCP Roofing Nissan Navara of Ernst Roberts and Henry Kerner. They had to open up the track on lap number 1, but still were able to throw down the fastest lap. The reason? It's a very tightly marked track this time around, and passes were very difficult on lap number 1. Lap number 2, they could stretch their legs and let it fly. Same story for Dewald van Breda and James Ware. They made some good, aggressive passes on lap number 1 in the G10 to get themselves up and challenge for a podium. They were on for a top 3. It looked like a good run this time around for Gideon Jacobs and Gideon Reinicke. A little bit of extra prep work after the DNF that they suffered at lap number 1 had them just outside of podium predictions. For Labuskakny and Niemann, they were the fastest side-by-side on track, putting around about 10 minutes difference between themselves and the best of the rest. The rest at this stage were the Viskerkers. For Johan and Sean van Staden, they set some of the fastest laps out there. And the biggest lines on the tarmac were set by the rest. For Giel Nel, Freddie O'Brien, and the Bug, they were all stuck in each other's dust and were super happy about getting onto the tarmac. The Bug just getting left behind. There's no replacement for displacement, and the B categories unfortunately not able to throw down the big horsepower. For Nishal Bonner, he had some issues out there on the track and a couple of helping hands to make sure he could keep running. He was on for a predicted win in the Class Bs. For Colin Croshaw and Marina van Schalkwyk, the C100 was still looking like the class of the field. They had no one to play with at round number 1. 2 competitors at this round, and they still looked like the best of the C class. For Rudy Miller and Gerrit Steyn in the B40, it was a long day in the saddle for them. 9th place on prediction, just completing lap number 1, unable to get out for lap number 2. The B12 this time around, just missing out on the podium placing by 1 position. For the Botmers, and Elise Roberts and James Trollope in the G7, showing that they're improving every single event on a 7-car lineup. Predicted a race finish number 5. Up and over, and closing in on the finish, Ernst Roberts and Henry Kerner, for the first time together on the season, looked like they were going to be able to record an emphatic win. The Viskerkers were charging hard, but were still down around about 10 minutes on the race leaders. They would be the first side-by-sides to get into the pits and take the checkers, but on corrected time they were running in a number 2 spot. Third on corrected time was Van Breda and Ware, although they'd had a really strong day in the seat. Side-by-sides showing constant improvement. The first time we've seen a 7-car lineup at the Africa Off-Road Championship race season. On for a predicted 10 cars coming into play, with a lot of cars getting prepped at the moment. They should be ready for rounds 3 and 4. For Barry Kotzer and Given and Gabeni, the D category was always going to be a little bit of a nail-biter. 2 cars in the queue. They were on for a predicted win at this stage, as long as they kept going. It was between themselves, Tians Jacobs and Valdi Prince, for the win in the D category. Peter and Natasha Reinicke in the G270, still trying to get themselves used to the look and feel of these events and the car, were on for a predicted number 6 finish in the 7-car entry from the Gs. The C7 of Johnny Walker and new navigator Dwayne McGregor were doing a good job to run number 2 at this stage. Marcus Labuskakny and Niemann in the G1 though were out and out some of the fastest guys out there, only getting beaten by some of the Ts and the FIA class cars. Croshaw and Van Schalkwyk had a good day at the office in the C100, although they would also suffer some issues late on in the race, but at this point were still the fastest of the Class Cs. De Villiers and Dupria, even though they had their issues literally on the first bump of the start chute, they were still in it to win it. G421 coming back from their disappointing DNF on lap number 1 of the first event. For Gideon Jacobs and Gideon Reinicke, our quad crossovers were in good shape, predicted to finish number 4 spot in the G class. Tians Jacobs and Valdi Prince in the D40, getting their fillings rattled out. Remember, the D class, much less suspension, much less development on that car. Nishal Bonner, amazingly enough, getting a little bit of a helping hand and keeping going out there. Still on for a predicted win in Class Bs, showing how dominant he had been in the opening laps of the event. Helping hands, making light work of the repairs. Back up, back out, and so close to a win on the season. With 3 entries coming in for the P class, Giel Nel and Ben Jansen looked like they were odds-on favourites But the P category, the widest of the vehicles racing, had some issues out there on the track. It was a tough day for them, having to squeeze their way through some of the more technical sections. For Freddie O'Brien and Johan Retief in the B39, they were on for a second place finish. Even with those problems for Bonner, he was still faster than O'Brien and Retief, who sounded like they were nursing some mechanical issues that were definitely slowing them down, but they were going to be strong enough to maybe just nurse the B39 to the finish line. For Sifi van Skalkwyk and Arthur Croshaw, the B100, who has taken wins and the car has run good, they were still on for a predicted top 3 placing, beating out some very tasty drivers, but it was the passing and getting stuck in the dust of some of the bigger category cars that held them back from their charge. Herbie goes bananas out into the fields once again. This bug has been racing almost longer than any of the other cars out there. Great to see it still representing. For Hein and Reinhard Engelbrecht in the P58, as I said, the P category, the widest vehicles out there, and the P class really had a tough day at the office, but nonetheless, they were all able to go out there and complete 3 laps of their racing course. Watch your toes, Mr. Marshall. Big rumbling and thundering V8s, a key feature of off-road racing in Southern Africa. Unlimited power, unlimited suspension travel, and huge tires to try and get everything hooked up. For Bennery and Piers Botma in the B12, they were just going to miss out on a podium this time out, suffering with the technical nature of the track. Predicted for a number 4 finish come the end of play. Another team that were one of the last in category to complete their of racing. The rest of the B class DNFing, showing how tough the course was at round 2 of the Africa Off-Road Championship Racing Series, the Econo Lichtenburg 200. For Elise Roberts and James Trollope in the G7, they got faster and faster and more aggressive, more comfortable on the terrain every single lap. Elise had the hammer down the whole way through the second half of the race to finish in a very credible number 5 finish. Wasn't good enough to catch up with husband Ernest and co-driver Henry Kerner. Ernest Roberts was literally untouchable as he put a fastest race time of 3 hours and 2 minutes and almost a lap between the rest of the best. For Labuskakny and Niemann in the G1, they were early finishers and they walked away with an emphatic win, just 10 minutes off the back wheel of Roberts and Kerner, showing how strong those side-by-sides really can run. The G10 of Van Breda and Ware got a number 3 finish, with Jacobs and Reinicke recording their first finish of the season in their side-by-side. The G421 gets a number 4 finish at round number 2 on a flat front tire. There was nothing stopping Jacobs and Reinicke this time around, and there was also nothing stopping Nishal Bonner. Even though he had some problems halfway through the race, he still recorded a win in the B category of only 4 cars to finish in that class. The G111 of the Viskerkas recorded a number 2 finish in category, and Nel and Janssen recorded a win in the Ps. Tough day for all of the category of cars that race at the Africa Off-Road Championship Racing Series. 200 kilometers of some of the toughest terrain that has been thrown at any of these drivers, co-drivers, or vehicles. The B100, 3rd place. The Bug will be happy with that. The B39, 2nd place. Strong drive coming out of the lads. For Botmas, it was a B12, walking away with a number 4 finish. Agonizingly close to the podium, but the last of the cars to complete their laps of racing. For Roberts, Elise this time around, alongside James Trollope, they recorded a confirmed number 5 finish. This is a breakdown of the categories coming at the end of 200 Ks of racing. For the Class Bs, Nishal Bonner, an incredible win ahead of Van Skalkwyk and Croshaw. The Botmans in 3rd, and O'Brien and Retief, the last of the finishers, with the rest of Class Bs DNFing. For the Class Ps, Giel Nel and Janssen recorded a nice win to open up their racing account ahead of the Engelbrecht, with a DNF from De Villiers and Dupree. And the Class Cs, Carleen Croshaw and Marina Van Skalkwyk, first of the DNFs, but categorized as first in category for Class C. For the Class Ds, Barry Kotzer and Given and Gabani, first of the DNFs in their class, and the same story for Class F, with Willy Fellman and Niemann. Also, a long list of DNFs in their category. For the Class Gs, the side-by-sides that is, it was some incredible racing, and the second fastest race time overall of the event goes to Labuskakny and Niemann. Nice 10-minute buffer ahead of the Viskerkers, with Van Breda and Ware in third, with the Gideons of Jacobs and Reinecker in fourth, and Elise Robertson, James Trollope inside of the top 5. For Ernest Robertson, Henry Kerner, they dominated the field in the Class Ts, opening the road and taking the flag, the rest DNFing. So that's it for what was an incredibly tough but challenging and fun Econo Lichtenburg 200, the second round of the Africa Off-Road Championship racing season. Big thanks once again to Econo Petroleum for hosting us. We look forward to round number 3 on the 30th of March, the Swazi Reinecker event. We'll be there once again to bring you all the off-road racing action.